the wrong attorney general in the room. Pam Bondi should be before this committee, and she should be testifying as to what she had on her desk that she claimed were the full Epstein files with lists, and why she wouldn't and still has not released the full unredacted files.
Hi again, everyone. It's now 5 o'clock in the East. That was one of the two House Democrats in the room yesterday for former AG Bill Barr's deposition. Bill Barr was testifying before the House Oversight Committee as part of its probe into the Jeffrey Epstein files. The congressman there is calling out a missing voice that they say they need to hear from because there is a huge discrepancy between Trump's attorneys generals. Here's current AG Pam Bondi back in February.
One of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that.
It's not somewhere, I don't know where, in a file cabinet, buried in the deep state bureaucracy. It is, quote, sitting on my desk right now, end quote. The committee then heard from Bill Barr yesterday, since he was Donald Trump's attorney general at the time of Jeffrey Epstein's death in 2019. And here's what the oversight chairman said about what Barr told them behind closed doors.
Attorney General Barr testified in there was that he never had conversations with President Trump pertaining to a client list. He didn't know anything about a client list. He said that he had never seen anything that would implicate President Trump in any of this, and that he believed if there had been anything pertaining to President Trump with respect to the Epstein list, that he felt like the Biden administration would have probably leaked it out.
Can't be both. Which is it? Are there no files and no client list? Or were they, quote, sitting on Pam Bondi's desk a few months ago? House Oversight Ranking Member Robert Garcia had a different take on what he heard from Bill Barr in his appearance in front of the committee, saying in a statement, quote, Attorney General Barr could not clear President Trump of wrongdoing. Chairman Comer should release the full unedited transcript of his interview for the public, end quote. Garcia also called for cooperation by the Trump administration to release all the files. Quote, releasing the Epstein files in batches just continues this White House cover-up. The American people will not accept anything short of the full, unredacted Epstein files. Today was the deadline for DOJ to hand over the files in compliance with a subpoena from the committee, the same group of subpoenas that brought Bill Barr before the committee to testify. But the Justice Department said they will begin the process on Friday. Despite the fact that they are delayed, the Washington Post reports this, quote, the release of any records from the Epstein files would mark a significant breakthrough after weeks of turmoil among Republicans sparked by the Justice Department's abrupt conclusion in July that no further disclosures of Epstein material, quote, would be appropriate or warranted, end quote. Since then, President Donald Trump, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and Republicans in Congress have struggled to respond to backlash from their base, which has speculated for years that others in Epstein's circle of rich and powerful friends may have played some role in his crimes. That's where we start the hour with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Former top prosecutor at the Department of Justice, Andrew Weissmann, is here. Also joining us, Christy Greenberg. She's a former Criminal Division Deputy Chief at SDNY. She's the host of the YouTube show Courtside. An investigative reporter for the New York Times, Mike Schmidt, is here as well. Lucky for us, all of them are MSNBC contributors. Mike Schmidt, let me start with you. Bill Barr did more to cover up for Donald Trump's political ambitions inside the Department of Justice than just about anyone. His reputation has been very much shined up, if you will, by his use of the word BS to describe Trump's delusions about actually winning the 2020 election. But how would you assess his credibility as a witness to this Republican-led oversight committee? Do you think he, having covered him, do you think he walked in there and answered questions truthfully?
My guess is that Bill Barr probably did go in and answer questions truthfully because he knows that he's in a situation that he's under an enormous amount of scrutiny, and that there are, right answers, to what he was told that could be figured out, and that this is, that he has respect for the process. You have to remember that Bill Barr was a key witness that was used by the Select House Committee that investigated the January 6th attacks against President Trump. His accounts, as you're pointing out, of how he used the word BS and how he told Trump over and over again that there was nothing to back up his allegations, were widely used and relied on by the committee and played over and over again. And the reason that Barr was such a great witness for the January 6th committee is that it was true that he did have a huge perception as someone that had really gone to bat for Donald Trump. He really did that around the end of the Mueller report by allowing for a certain narrative about the report's findings to take hold before we were actually able to see the underlying contents of the report. He was one of the people that really went to bat for the president on the Russiagate allegations. He appointed a special counsel to look into them. Ultimately, that special counsel largely backs up everything that the Obama administration determined and found. There were some smaller issues that they did uncover, but the larger brushstrokes of the Russia investigation remained intact based on what Barr's special counsel had done, a special counsel that continued on into the Biden administration. So certainly someone that, Democrats wanted to rely on heavily during the January 6th investigation to paint a picture of Trump and what Trump was doing. And I myself am anxious to see what happens. We see this happen a lot with very big congressional testimony where these individuals go in behind closed doors to give depositions, and one side comes out and says the person said one thing, and the other side comes out and says the person said another. And indeed, the transcript is what will answer this and will provide that. But it is always something, that Democrats and Republicans both do, where they try and sculpt the narrative before we, the public, are able to see what the witness has actually said.
Andrew Weissmann, I guess the difference is that the Republicans are the ones right now on the hot seat from their own voters for being part of a cover-up and a conspiracy. So all the pressure right now bears on the Republicans who lead the committee to release the Bill Barr transcript. And I'm probably not quite as enthusiastic as Mike just said he is to read Bill Barr's transcript, but I am eager to understand if Comer's lying about it, why? If Bill Barr doesn't clear Trump, why did Comer say he did? And if he did clear Trump, why not release the transcript?
Yeah, well, look, now they've just added to the number of things that people are going to want released. In other words, this is really death by a thousand cuts. I mean, if they now have a transcript they're not releasing, and they are going to sort of just release things in sort of dribs and drabs, it's going to create the impression, and certainly with me, the impression that there has to be something there, or else you would just turn it all over, obviously with appropriate redactions for names of victims and personal information. But that is the conundrum that they have, and it's one of their own making. In terms of this sort of he said, she said that we're seeing play out, obviously, as Mike is correct, obviously the transcript will show it. But I also think there's probably a little bit of no there. In other words, Bill Barr, it sounds like he just doesn't know anything about this. It wasn't looked at, so he can say, I don't know anything about, I have no information about Donald Trump, and then he can speculate about, gee, I think the Democrats would have leaked this if it was there. I mean, all of that is not solid evidence. It does raise the question of course, why didn't they look at it and do a thorough investigation? If it's true that Bill Barr doesn't know anything about this, there's sort of the obvious question, which is why not? I think that's true, just to be fair. That's true of many administrations that dropped the ball in terms of accountability on the Jeffrey Epstein case and making sure that the rights of the victims were timely and adequately vindicated. But I really think the Republicans here are hurting themselves by having this death by a thousand cuts approach to the Jeffrey Epstein files.